Do you want to catch one of the biggest bass of the year or have one of the best fishing trips of the year? Then this is the month to do it. The month of May is one of the best months of the year to go out and catch bass, no matter where you live in the country. And in this video today, you're going to get to hear a bunch of different techniques, areas to go fish, the different lures and presentations to try. Stay tuned for this video. You're not going to want to miss it.
Today we're going to go over my two favorite lures to fish in the month of May, sort of give you guys some tips and advice on what I like to look for and how I like to fish them. So anyway, let's get into it. First of all, right off the bat, probably my favorite lure to catch big fish and just a fun lure to fish in general is the 8-inch Megabass Magdraft. Now a lot of people fish the 6-inch model. Guys, I prefer the 8-inch model, the larger model. This will get you a big bite in the post spawn. Now, this lure here is approximately 7 inches long, sort of in that category. It weighs a couple ounces. Most of the time, I'm throwing it on a flipping stick with like 25-pound test Seaguar and BizX line. And this is one of the best lures that you can fish for post-spawn fish on main lake and secondary points. And that's the key structures I look for, because what happens is after those fish spawn in April and sort of maybe the first part of May, say in the coves and creeks, the first place they go to a lot of times is those secondary points that are close to spawning areas, and then they work their way out to the main lake and set up on the main lake points, and that's when you can catch them on the big 8-inch Megabass Magdraft. Now, another key with this is you have to have the right conditions, guys. You have got to have wind. If you don't have wind, they're not going to bite this thing. It's a large bait. They got to have some type of a surface disturbance or low light level. So I like a windy day, or I like some type of a heavy overcast or even a rainy day. Ideally, the best I've done on this in the month of May is on sort of a cloudy, rainy day that's got a 10 to 20 mile an hour wind with a south wind. If you get those combinations, that's the best time to fish this. So usually I'm fan casting it in anywhere between 5 to 20 foot of water off of those points, depending upon the water clarity. If the water clarity is like over 4 foot in clarity, I'm targeting that sort of that 10 to 20 foot zone. If the water visibility is 3 foot or less, I'm up more in that 5 to 10 foot zone. Big Megabass Magdraft in a variety of colors. Just again, the colors depend upon the water clarity, sunlight conditions. Now my second lure, my second favorite May lure, and this is something, guys, you will love to fish once you get used to it, is this Megabass Dark Sleeper. Now this is a keel weighted swim bait that's not fished like a swim bait. The keel weight on this thing, as you can see right here, is designed to be fished like a jig. So I fish this in May on the same points that I'm fishing the big Megabass Magdraft on, and I'll cast the Dark Sleeper out there, I'll let it go to the bottom, and then I'll just hop it off the bottom hard, just like that. I'm not dragging it, I'm not just working it like a worm, I'm popping it off the bottom pretty hard, letting it fall back down. Guys, this will get you a ton of bites in the post spawn. I mean, this is one of those baits where you can catch, 20 to 50 bass a day in the post spawn. Ideal conditions are clear water. I like water visibilities of over 4 foot for the most part, although you can catch them in less that. And, they'll bite it in a wide variety of wind or cloud cover conditions. So anyway, guys, here's my two favorite: Megabass Dark Sleeper, Megabass 8-inch Magdraft. It will get you a lot of bites and big bites. So give them a try. I think it'll help out a lot.
All right, buddy, so it's May, and to me, that means for most of the country, most of the fish have done spawning. They've done their deal up shallow, and now they're out deep in post-spawn and recovering, which means that they're pretty darn lethargic. You either have to throw a fast-moving bait to get them to react to it, or slow down with a very slow, methodical, bottom dragging technique. And that is why during the month of May, one of my absolute favorite baits, and probably one of the classic ways to catch fish, during the post spawn, has got to be a big worm. So a big worm like this Mag Fatties here, this one is a little bit different. A lot of people like to throw big ribbon tail worms. I really like the subtle nature of this big straight tail worm this Z-Man came out with. It's 7 inches. It's a lot wider than most other, 7-inch straight tail worms. It's got a lot of salt in it, and it's also made of elastec, so it sticks straight up, with the tail straight in the water and just kind of shakes. So it's got a lot of action to it, but it's also very, very subtle compared to some of the other different types of big worms that they have. Now, as far as fishing a big worm like the Mag Fatties or a big ribbon tail worm, there's several ways you can rig it. This right here is a Texas rig, but the weight is pegged, okay? And this is really good if you're looking to fish brush piles. So like a lot of times those big female post-spawn fish will just dig right into brush piles, and that's where they feel safe. And pegging your weight's a really good way to get this worm down into the center of that brush. But I also fish it with just a sliding sinker too for a lot of different situations. You know, if it's a little less dense cover, maybe it's grass or just a single lay down or a stump or something like that, a sliding sinker works perfect with this. Another way, and it's a great way to rig it, and definitely my favorite for the TVA, is a big Magnum shaky head. This right here is the lead shaker, and it's 3/8 ounce or ½ ounce is generally the sizes I'm using. But the reason why I like throwing a football shaped shaky head, Magnum shaky head like this with the big worms, is that it is really good for ledge fishing, and we've got no shortage of that here on Lake Chickamauga, Gunnersville, Wheeler, Pickwick. Whenever you've got a bare bottom situation, whether it's shell beds or gravel or whatever it is, this right here is going to bring that bait in kind of a straight up and down motion, orientation, and it's really good for just dragging, and it's got a great hooking percentage. So I really like throwing a Magnum shaky head with my big worms on the TVA. I like to use a 7.3 medium heavy rod. This right here is the all-purpose series rod. I like to use 12 to 15 pound test fluorocarbon. Seaguar Tatsu is kind of my standard for this. And then I also use a high-speed gear ratio reel. High-speed gear ratio reels are great for worming because, you're not going to overwork this bait because of the reel gear ratio, but it allows you to be a little bit more efficient. You can reel in real fast and make another presentation. So you can just bring in a lot of slack with that. So that is the setup, but in general, it's just all about finding those areas where those fish are moving, and they're kind of engaging in that post-spawn recovery process, and they're getting into those summer areas. So structures such as humps, long points, ledges, like we talked about, brush piles, if they're on that type of structure, it's even better. But you find those post-spawn areas, you can really slow down with a big worm, and it is just a May killer for sure.
If you guys enjoy the content in this video and want more personalized instruction, head to our website, fishthemoment.com. Then go to the virtual lessons page. Here you can book one-on-one virtual lessons with each member of the Fish the Moment team. In these 1-hour lessons, the Fish the Moment team member will break down your lake using Google Earth and a contour line map and answer any questions you have. Whether you're preparing for an upcoming fishing tournament or a fun weekend on the lake, make sure you sign up for one of these one-on-one virtual lessons so you're fully prepared to catch as many fish as possible on the water. Check them out at fishthemoment.com.
There's a lot of really good baits to choose during the month of May, but if you live up here in the North Country, you got to recognize that the majority of the bass population, regardless of species, are going to be up shallow. They're going to be in some form of the spawn. You've got your pre-spawn, spawn, post-spawn phases. The month of May is the prime time for that. And because of that, I love to go with flipping baits. This Berkley Power Bait Crash Craw is one of my absolute favorites right now. They got a 3.5 inch and a 4.25 inch size. Both work great, but there's a couple of things that I love about this. It's a compact design. You've got small little kicker legs to it with a wide flat body. And what that does is it gives your bait some good gliding motion. And when you get that bait down around those objects that they're going to be hanging out around for all 3 stages, this bait does a great job at triggering them to strike. If I'm fishing cleaner water, I like to go with something like the green pumpkin. If I'm fishing a little bit more off-colored water, black and blue is a great one. The goat is another great color that it comes in, which is like a half black and blue, half green pumpkin. This is a bait that I love to fish just as a straight Texas rig, as you can see here, but I do like to fish it unpegged, meaning I like my bullet weight to slide away, which allows this bait to have a little bit more motion and generate a few extra bites when those fish are actually locked on beds. It seems like a slower fall is more tantalizing to them, and generally they like that. Plus, when they do bite it, they tend to get the hook better, meaning When they bite it, they pull the bait away from the weight versus having to suck the weight in as well. Because we know a lot of times bedding fish like to just pick a bait up by the tails and carry it off. So anything that can allow them to suck the bait in appears to work better to me. I love this little Berkley power bait Crash Craw. It's quickly becoming one of my absolute favorite baits to pitch around on a Texas rig at any of your isolated cover where you think the fish are going to be using it to stage as a pre-spawn location, using it for a bedding location, or using it as a post-spawn location to either recover from the spawn or to guard their fry. Check out the Berkley power bait Crash Craw. It's a good one.
Hey guys, from me, I love the month of May. I had one of my best fishing trips last year in this month, and I was going to share with you guys, I don't have one lure I like to throw, I have a 1-2 punch, and so I'm going to go ahead and talk about my 1-2 punch and then get into the areas I like to target. So first off is going to be a medium to deep diving crankbait. I have a Strike King 5XD right here. This is the 6 cent C10. I also like the 6XD as well this time of year, and also the 6 cents has a C15 and they go to 20 and 25. But I'm not going to those bigger, deeper diving plugs yet. The next type of worm I like to throw is a Magnum trick worm, or more of a Magnum finesse style worm. The first one, of course, is one of the originals. This is a Zoom Magnum trick worm right here. And then the other style worm I like to throw, which is similar, is the 6 cents Divine shaky worm, okay? The thing about this 6 cents Divine worm is it has, you see, little ripples. It's just a little bit different. It gives off a little bit different vibration as it's moving through the water column than just your typical worms right here. On these worms, I'm gonna have it on a big Magnum style shaky head. This right here is the 6 cents Magnum shaky head. There's the Excite brands. There's a couple different brands that go with it. I just like the 6 cents version. Areas I like to target, I'm going to be looking for your points, your flats, really your rounded points that are going to be near spawning areas. Now on these rounded points, I'm going to be looking for different types of cover, but the main cover for me is going to be shell beds. I'm going to be looking for shell bed, and with shell beds it could be a rock bottom, and then the shells could be mixed in there as well. What the shells do, it's like a little filter in the water, and it's just another little ecosystem of its own. What that does is you're going to have your plankton come in there, you're going to have bait fish, you're going to have bigger bait fish, and then all of a sudden the bass are going to come up there and feed before they get out there to them summer holes. Now how I fish these, because since some of these are pretty shallow, guys, you know, I will at times throw up on the point and bring it down, or I could sit up there on the flat and throw this out to the deeper water and bring it up. Just kind of depends how the fish are positioned that day. Could be depending on the wind and just really the time of day. Sometimes those fish are going to be hanging more off of the edge, but then when they're really feeding, they are going up to feed. But you can still target those fish that are not feeding, that are off the drop. Particular area and the structure, guys, when you find it, you will load the boat and have potentially one of the best fishing trips of the year. Now, but it is hard. It's not just, you know, going up to a point and finding this special spot. It does take a lot of time of looking, searching, and then, but when you find it, it will pay off.
Hey guys, Kyle Cortiana here with Bass Fishing Declassified. Listen, today I'm going to tell you what my favorite bait is in the month of May. More particularly lakes, any lakes that have grass. The TVA has a lot of grass, but there's a lot of lakes around the country that have grass. Any lakes that have grass in the month of May, after the bass have spawned, when the bluegills start to get in and invade the beds, one of my favorite baits to throw, the Dinger, the color money. You hear me talk about it, it's because I've had so much success on it. This color is so cool. It's got this nice kind of dark black back with a chartreuse bottom. It's like a laminate. It's got black and gold flake in it. It looks so much like a bluegill. Bass can't stand it getting around their beds, and so any place that you caught bass in the spawn, especially in grass fisheries or the TVA, probably because there's a hard bottom there, there's shells, so the bass were spawning. The bass lead, they pull out, they're going to recover, and so they need to eat. But what happens is the bluegill get up there and they start spawning. So time for revenge, basically, because the bluegill have been eating their eggs and the bass have been getting mad at them. Now the bluegill get up there and spawn, and now the bass don't just run them off, they get up there and eat them for dinner. Lurenet.com, use my coupon code Cortiana15, saves you 15%, and they give me a little bit back. I throw this on a 5/0 Trocar. This is the TK105 straight shank offset worm hook. That guy right there. You can throw it on a 4/0 too if it's a little too big for you, but I like getting away with a bigger hook if I can. And I'm just Texas rigging it. I'm just worming it on there, Texasing it up. And the main thing, again, don't forget about the Dinger. It has that slot in it, and you want to rig it to where that slot is on the top of the worm. So after you're done putting the hook through, the point of the hook is sitting right in that slot. So it makes it really weedless. It's hiding in there, but you can see it's there. So it really helps with hookup ratio. You can see that 5/0 hook fits that worm pretty well. You could go down to a 4/0 if you wanted to, but the 5/0 gives a little more weight, and I throw it completely weightless. Texas rig, no weight, 7.3 to 7.6 medium heavy. The Kistler Helium, the KLX model works really good too. Series 1 reel. Throw it out there, 7.3 to 1 gear ratio. Throw it out there in those holes in those grass beds or on the shell beds or wherever those bass are spawning, and literally just count it down and wait for that dunk, and then just swim off with it. If not, just hop it a couple times and until your bait kind of falls into one of those beds. That's what you're trying to do. So the reason for the 7.3, 7.6, I make it as long a cast as possible. These bluegill are on beds and the bass are up there cruising around eating them. So you just want to try to remain as undetectable as possible. So the really long cast, longer rod helps you do that. You can go down in line size, but 17s with 8, I'm gonna go. The 17s the line I'm gonna throw. And yeah, that's easy, dude. It's that easy. You'll catch a lot of fish. I've had a lot of money get made throwing the old Weightless Dinger in the month of May. Again, especially TVAs, Grass Lakes. So go get you some Yum Money dingers and have fun out there in the month of May.